Oh, my computer time is always slow.
All
right, I'll start letting people in.
Go.
Right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we're going to be letting people in. We're really excited to have you join us for this very important and pertinent conversation. So we're going to give it about like 2 or 3 minutes to let everyone get in. We know that Zoom recently just had an update, so we know that was causing some login issues as well. So we'll give about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to jump right in. So yeah.
Morning, everybody. Morning. Good morning.
Oh.
I see Cedric got the fro going. I need to grow my fro.
My Kaepernick vibes.
Yeah. I like it. Julia, I'm sure you miss your kids, huh? Mm-hmm. All of this going on.
Yeah, it's very bittersweet. Like, this doesn't feel like regular.
Yeah.
Like, school technically ends on Wednesday. And it's usually like a really big thing, like especially like when the last bus leaves, like we have like a whole moment. So yeah, it's very bittersweet. And also feel like my kids this year kind of got the jack because they didn't have me for a whole, they had me for a whole year, but they didn't have me for a whole year. So I've gotten tons of requests from parents trying to get me to move to 7th, 6th grade. My principal contacted me and he was like, hey, you have like a lot of requests for parents that want you to teach
5th grade.
Like 7th.
7th grade.
I want to teach 7th, and I was like,
Yeah, it's tough. Hi, Renee. I see you out there.
Hello. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning.
I was on the other call with your wife. She's doing
great. Yeah. She's doing her thing. That's her element right there. I'm just the guy in the back.
Yes, I saw this on Money, and I was like, oh, I got to jump in on this. So I hope y'all keep in there and see what y'all doing over here.
Not a problem.
That's always good.
We're all inclusive.
Yeah.
Here on there. I'll give it about another minute or two.
That's right.
While we wait for other people to join, I just want to introduce what Young Adult Ministry is and who we are and stuff. So we are from the Zion Woodbridge campus. We are a sub-campus of Zion in Landover with our Pastor Keith Battle, and our campus pastor, Pastor Jason. We started this ministry to support young adults between the ages of 21 and 35 to have an opportunity for us to serve together, grow in the Lord together, and just really come together and be supportive of each other. So this is another way that we connect, and it's via Zoom, and we're glad you're here. As Julia said, we will get started in a few. So.
Nice. What's up, Courtney? I see you out there, Coach. You and wifey? How you doing? Good to see y'all.
Good. How you doing?
I'm all right. How's the kids? How the kids and everybody?
Everybody doing well. We can't complain.
That's good.
Right. Well, I am going to ask Julia to say a quick prayer.
Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for this time together. We're very excited for the knowledge that you're going to impart on your people. But first and foremost, we want to give honor to you for creating this space. Even amidst all this on in the world, we ask that you cover every single individual on this call and their households, Lord. Every single need before it is even ushered. We ask this is a productive, informative, and fun call in which we can grow closer together in Christ, but also get some great knowledge on how to financially secure ourselves for our future. And we ask all this in the mighty name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
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 So as we get started, I want to start with our guest. Oh, wait, before I do that, I want everyone who's on the leadership team to wave when I shout you out. Woo, woo, woo. All right, so I'm Crystal Washington. My husband is Cedric Washington. We got Julia, Miss Cusor. We got the lovely Crystal Isaac, Justin Campbell, and Doug Harris. This camera's like, you see him with his wife.
Wait, I'm screaming at Douglas's clap. That he-
All right. And so now I'd like to introduce our guest today. He helps us out a lot, my family personally, and we are glad that he is on the call. He goes to Zion Woodbridge himself, but he's a full-time financial expert. All right. So give it over to Mr. Teddy.
Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everybody at Zion. Miss the church. I don't know about y'all, but I miss seeing everybody now. So I think it's been about 3 months now being all shackled up. It's not a bad thing, but for all the married folks out here, let's just know, Renee, you looking at me, and Courtney, you looking at me. Ooh, ain't easy. Ain't easy out here, just being here. But yeah, Crystal, my name, for those of you who haven't heard of me or known me, my name is Teddy Fana, as you can see on the screen. I've been in financial services for close to 21 years now. Have an extensive background in banking, and then I joined New York Life about 8 years ago. Started off as an advisor / agent, and now I'm a partner. So I've been fortunate to lead a team of young advisors and prudent people that can help service our community. My intention today with you all is just to get through as many of your questions and things that young families such as you all on here are some of the questions that you all may have. I don't have all the answers. I have a wealth of answers based on my experience and background, but I can guarantee you some of your questions, even if I don't have the answers readily accessible, I can get that answer for you. So utilize me. I wanted to be interactive. I don't like things being scripted, so I didn't want to, Crystal and the team they had asked me if I wanted to use slides. I have one slide that I sent out. They're going to share with you all. It just gives you some stats on Black families and where we are in the U.S. I think it's about 2 years old, but taking into consideration where we are as a culture. That's all I'm going to share with you guys as far as slides, but everything else will be word of mouth and coming out from me. And then they have a ton of questions that you all have compiled, and I'll try my best to go through those. So I say all of that to say welcome again, and maybe Crystal, should we just start off with the questions, or you guys tell me what's been happening? Maybe I should kick it off that way with some of you guys being all. I mean, this is a new time for us now. We're all in. No one has lived through this before. I mean, if you've been around in the last pandemic, that will make you about 100 and change. So I don't know about y'all. I don't have anybody around, that's that old. And if they are, I bless them. But I say all of this to say this is a new world order. And so we're learning as we go day by day. So, what's happening out there with you all?
So I know you sent us a slide.
Yep.
Preston, are you available to present that?
Yep. Got it. Can everyone see that? Thumbs up. Right. So it's kind of hard to see, I don't know, in its entirety, but this just kind of segments or kind of gives you the idea or the marketplace for African Americans in the U.S. And of course, looking at how significant some of the stats that jumps out to me, and the reason why I love this piece is the fact that you have more Blacks in colleges. I think there's a significant jump, close to 20% jump or so from 2014 to now. The purchasing power, I'm sure you all have heard of it before, how much money we have as a culture, as a group in this country. There's a significant amount of us who, agree with doing some form of financial planning. I think 7 out of 10 Blacks in the U.S. kind of, engage in some form of financial planning or seeking some form of financial advice, be it an advisor or whatever resource they're tapped into. Preston, if you don't mind going to the second page, please.
I don't think we had the second page. I'm sorry.
There was a little attachment to it.
Well, you can just speak to it.
Yeah, I forgot what was on that one.
Hold on, I can pull it up.
But I can pull it up here on my end. Welcome to technology, right? Crystal, I think I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it. I can pull it up here. And the second piece just talks about, and this is a really good one. I don't know if Crystal, if you're able to pull that up too, but that would be good for them just to see the wealth gap between white families versus black families in this country. I don't know, many of you have heard of it, but just to read what it says it will take 228 years for African American families to accumulate the same amount of wealth as white families, and that's as of 2016. They said it goes on to say the average African American household has over 100,000 less in retirement savings than the average white household. Over the past 30 years, the average household wealth of white families has grown 84% to about 650,000, while the average African American household has climbed by 27% to 85,000. So 650,000 in growth versus 85,000 for a typical black family. You can see how much disparity exists. So I leave it at that for now, and have you guys, fire off your questions, because I wanted to be more interactive and answer you guys directly. I don't want to sound like, because I've done these a lot, so I don't want to hit you all with so many statistics. Let's hear what's happening in your life. So Crystal, you and Julia, you can probably shoot off the questions, or if anyone want to raise their hand, and feel free to raise your hand and ask me questions.
Okay, well, before we jump into the ones we had before, I know Renee asked a question. She said, can you explain the importance of saving money over time and why you should start saving today? And I think your slide definitely helped with that, to show that overall our community could really use the savings, and we just have a lower starting point. Yeah.
Good question, Renee. I like real life situations, so I'll throw this back, and I'm going to answer the question, but I'll throw this back. Can you imagine how many families who did not have some form of emergency savings and had to be laid off or furloughed from their job since March up till now? I cannot tell you how many people I've spoken to, friends, family members, who, for whatever reason, now, some of them might have dire situations where there's a single parent household, or there's one income coming to the household, or whatever the reasons might be. But just the mere fact that they did not have some money put aside to be able to cover a mortgage, food, the basic essentials on a daily basis, that family is in peril. You see a lot of the stuff on TV where you got people going to food drives just to get food because they don't have the money to be able to go buy just something as basic as food. And then, of course, if you're a renter and you're living or you're renting your home, or you're paying a mortgage and you can't afford to pay that mortgage because you don't have anything in your savings because you've been furloughed, that puts you in peril, you and your family. So there's a need to save, regardless of the pandemic we're in. I always speak to all of my clients and kind of encourage them to say, look, how much are you making? The normal or the conventional advice in my industry is to say, put 10% of your money aside every month. And Crystal and Cedric can speak to this. But that's hard for a lot of people. But then let's really put it into perspective. If you're making 60 grand or 70 grand, 10% is $7 grand a year. That's how I look at it. If we want to break it down even more, that's about $500 a month if you want to look at it on that scale. So when I tell a lot of people, say, put 10% of your income away, they probably look at me and laugh and say, Teddy, you're crazy. I got so much bills and stuff. So I say, okay, great. Well, what's the number for you? Because somewhere down the road within that 10%, there has to be a number for you. Is it 3? Is it 5? And so I always like to give them a median, because I always tell them what 10% is, what 10% would look like. But again, if you're making 60,000 and you can't put away $6,000 a year, can you put away $3 grand? It becomes more realistic then. The idea is just to start to get into some form of a discipline, because eventually what would happen is they can eventually get to that 10% or more. But once you're able to not pay attention to that money that's coming out of your paycheck and go into some form of a savings account every month, and all of a sudden 6 months down the road, or 3 months down, or 12 months down the road, you see how much you've accumulated, then you realize that, oh my God, I've done this, and maybe you can go ahead and increase it. So I don't know if that helps you, Renee, and you can speak to this. You can mute yourself if you want to dig a little deeper, or have me dig a little deeper for you.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I'm sort of in the category. The reason I kind of wanted to jump on the call is because I've sort of been in the shoes. When I was 20 years old, I mean, how many people can relate when someone says save money? Like you said, Teddy, I was like, well, I can't afford to save. You know, I got to buy furniture for my apartment. You know, I have to pay my bills. I have school loans. And I remember having that conversation with my grandmother. And she said, well, do you have a 401k on your job? I was like, yeah, but I can't participate right now. I'll probably sign up like next year when they have open enrollment. And I remember she said to me, well, you can't afford not to. And just out of respect I have for her, I really didn't understand what she was saying to me. So I just signed up anyway. And it was like 5%. I definitely could have used that extra, you know, $100 a month or whatever it was. I definitely could have used it to pay off some bills. But I can tell you that it is realistic in your lifetime to become millionaires and multimillionaires just by saving just a little bit over time. And it's you'll be amazed at how fast your money grows if you start saving it and you don't touch it unless you really need it. And you're also going to find, especially those of us on the call that are older, is that time goes by so fast. If you don't do it, you're going to feel it when you get into your 30s, into your 40s, into your 50s, and you look back and you say, man, where did time go? Because you always think I can save like tomorrow or I could save next year, but there's always life. There's always things that come up that kind of stop you from doing it. So, you know, I would just encourage people to just say, make a commitment to yourself. Just like we make a commitment to God and say, I'm committed that regardless of what happens, this is something that I have to do for myself.
Well, it's funny you mentioned your grandmother. I think you said, right, Renee?
Yes.
Your grandmother. 70% of the wealth in this country is controlled by baby boomers. And I'm just going to go on a limb here because Renee looks very, very young. I can point that out. But, you know, just looking at, I can understand how old her grandmother is. And I'll point this out again to all of you guys. There's a reason why people like her grandmother or my grandparents or parents control a lot of the wealth in this country. Well, guess what? They started saving early. They started putting their money into their retirement vehicles early. And that is why, and you look at most of our grandparents, they own homes, they have 401ks, some of them have pension plans already exist. Most of us now, the younger generation, we're not involved in it. And it's a call to action for us. And it helps our community in so many different ways. I mean, go on, you look at so much social discrepancy that exists in our communities now. It's part of this, where we're having these discussions because, you know, if you know, somebody like Renee, you know, back then when she was in her 20s, like myself, if someone came to me and told me to put $200 away a month, I'm like, please. But I can tell you what, every time I went to DC and I grabbed a table at Park, and I was one of those people who was frivolous with my spending, I was spending about $1,500 a weekend on a table, just on a table, getting champagne and drinking. So when you think about it, that's the culture. It's almost like a culture we've bought into, but we still don't understand the dynamics about how life really works, because all of that stuff is going to fade. You're going to move ahead. Now, I'm a married man with kids. I can't do that stuff anymore. Every now and then, you know, we got to go celebrate someone's birthday. Yeah, we can indulge. I'm not saying to not enjoy yourself, but making that your lifestyle. And then all of a sudden now you're looking back and saying, well, look at how much money I've wasted when I could have done something better with it. So,
and I think like financial literacy is so important. And I'm glad, Teddy, you're doing this, and everyone for jumping on a call. But it's sort of like the thing that, you know, I was starting to realize is that we really don't know a lot about finances. Mm-hmm. We really don't. You know, I see people who their plan of financial freedom is winning the lottery. You know, that's pretty much how they're going to get the money. Yeah. And the reality is you got a better chance of getting wealth, generating wealth on your own, not playing the lottery, but doing other things. Let me ask the question. How many people, everyone's been kind of locked in. If people can just kind of like type in, what are your favorite shows that you like to watch?
I've watched a couple since I've been quarantined.
You have to type it in or say it. I'm just curious.
Real Housewives of Atlanta, of course, Crystal. Of course.
I like that too. I like Potomac.
Of course. Yeah. Sounds like something my wife
Nate is reading HGTV. I like that.
Yeah.
The Challenge. Oh, I like that one too.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Anybody started watching all the news stuff over the last couple of weeks? I know I did a lot of like CNN and MSNBC. And then I say that to say one thing that people didn't put, and I was kind of guilty of this, is anybody ever watch CNBC? Anybody know what CNBC is? Okay, Preston said yes. James said yes. CNBC is really, it's all about money. And sometimes just having it in the background, even if you don't understand it, if you keep it on, you'll be amazed at how much you pick up. I don't know if people know, but there was like a dip in the stock market, and people think, well, the stock market, they really don't understand it. But there was a dip in the stock market in March that if you would have bought, for example, a stock like Tesla that was like $499, and you could have bought it just a fraction of it. Do you realize that stock got all the way up almost to $1,200 within a month? So you could have doubled, in some cases, tripled your money just by being involved in the stock market. And then you say, well, how do I get in the stock market? I'm sure, Teddy, you kind of speak to this, but there are simple things like the Cash App. Anybody have a Cash App on their phone? Do you know you can buy like $2 worth of Nike on a Cash App? Anybody ever done it? Okay, good. I mean, so there are ways that are out there, and I'm sure Ted, you can kind of speak to this on how you can educate yourself so that you can have your money, make money, and create wealth for you. So that really, not just for wealth's sake, what I found is that the more money I have, the more I'm able to bless people. And I want God to use me as a vessel to be a blessing for other people, but I first have to be in a position where I'm able to do it. So there are ways to do it, and it doesn't have to be so foreign and so out of the box, and to think that you can't be there and that can't be your reality. It really can. I think there's really a good start.
So let me ask this question to everybody, and you can raise your hand or you can tell me. Does everybody know what a stock is, what a mutual fund is? If you don't know, tell me you don't know, and I'll explain it. Because I think that was one of the questions, right, Crystal? I probably should address it. All right. Yes to stocks. So I see a couple of yeses. Has anyone said no, Crystal? So it seems like everyone says. Maybe we can just.
You can just do a quick definition for those who may have not chimed in.
So it's and I'm happy Renee kind of pointed out like two companies, Tesla and Nike, but I'll use Nike. So a stock is basically an investment vehicle that a company uses to generate income. So basically, when a company puts out a stock to the marketplace for you and I to purchase, you are actually becoming the creditor. You're loaning them money so they can in turn pay you when they're profitable. That's all it is. So it's almost like you're giving them money and you're giving them your credit card in a way. The average person doesn't really invest in stocks, and there's a reason, because stocks can become very volatile. Volatile meaning dangerous or risky, should I say. But it's good to invest in stocks. So what the government has in place is called mutual funds. What mutual fund does is it is a conglomerate of stocks. So you have different sectors. So if you're in the technology sector where you got a bunch of technology company, instead of just investing in Microsoft, there are mutual funds built up with different technology company in one block, if you want to call it that. And so many people in this country, even including all your 401k retirement plans, invest in mutual funds. So my advice to all of you is take advantage of something like that, because what happens is the reason why mutual funds are a lot safer than stocks, even though they are risky as well. If one company fails in that fund, in that block, there are a lot of other companies to prop it up. Kind of makes sense? So what Renee is pointing to is when the market is down, like when we had the market being down in March, it is better to kind of put your ears out and kind of research. She did point out CNBC is a great channel to use. I'll give you guys something basic from the time I've been in the US, and I'm not from here, but from growing up in the US, I've used from day one, since the internet age, Yahoo Finance. Please use Yahoo Finance. Yahoo Finance is like your Bible. Yahoo Finance has everything listed there, from what you need to know about stocks and mutual funds to the daily rates, your savings rates, as in the rates on CDs, the rates on savings accounts, the rates on borrowing, credit card rates, mortgage rates, car loan rates. These are the things that you all need. So before you even go to that dealership to understand if you're purchasing a brand new car versus a used car, kind of familiarize yourself with what those rates are. All these companies have rates on their website. So from the banks to the credit unions that you can research. Again, equip yourself with enough information. Information now is priceless. Trust me. Just pick up the phone. There's a reason why people like myself have jobs. These professionals were created for a reason. Pick up the phone and call me, call Crystal, reach out to me, or reach out to somebody in my capacity. Let them give you the advice that you need before you make a financial decision. Or just ask your parents, because I can tell you, a lot of the financial decisions our parents made got us here today. So ask them. They know a lot. I asked my mom as much as I'm educated with it. So
Teddy, you touched on a lot of that. We're getting a lot of great questions from everybody, and I'm trying to see how I can combine them all in this short amount of time.
I'm here. I ain't going nowhere.
So someone mentioned via a question before and in the chat about when you budget that kind of thing. You know, someone says, shouldn't you be eliminating debt before you start investing? You know, other people, you know, like you mentioned earlier, you should really focus on saving your money. And I know you and I have had conversations about, you know, should I tackle my debt heavy or should I put a lot of money in savings? Right. What is your advice for people?
Debt is relative. You know, it all depends on what your debt level is and what kind of debt you have. So what do I mean by that? If you're a person that just have a lot of department store debt, credit card debt, high credit card balances and stuff where, you know, you're making that minimum payments every month, but you're still seeing your balance still stay the same. Because, you know, it's funny, just to point this out, a lot of people don't realize this. When you get your credit card statement and you get a minimum payment due, it's not necessarily the most advisable thing just to pay the minimum payment, because what happens is you have these high interest credit card. And if you look at how much money, so that payment that you're paying, how much is going to the principal in itself. So let's just say if you have a credit card balance of about, you know, your credit card limit is $5,000, you have a balance of $3,000. Let's just say your minimum payment is $100. But if you're making $100 minimum payment every month, chances are $60 is going towards interest and $40 is going to your principal balance. So I can go into the math and tell you that in order to pay off that $3,000 credit card balance that you have might take you years. And the credit card is just making that money. I mean, just do the math. So what people don't realize is, and then also what happens is you're still using that credit card, by the way. You don't stop using it. You're still swiping it everywhere you go. So the balance is still revolving. That becomes a bad debt that's still lingering, still following you. So going back to the question, if you find yourself in a position where your income is, say, $50,000 and you have an amount of debt of about $10,000 or $20,000, then yes, it makes sense to pay off some of that debt before you start to invest, because you have to find some form of a discipline. But if you're making $100,000 and you got about $10,000 in credit card debt or $20,000 in credit card debt, you can afford to still be paying off your credit card debt and still investing. So it all depends on where you are. And sometimes I challenge some of these podcasts, and I think you're Dave Ramsey and whatnot, and not saying they're bad, but I challenge them in some of the recommendations and things that they point out to people, just being very blatant and telling them, do this. Everyone on this call and everyone in this country and everyone that you and I know situation is different. So I can't look at you on this call right now and tell you what to do, because I have to be able to have a financial conversation with you and dig deeper before I can make recommendations.
Thank you for that, Teddy. So Crystal had to step away. She'll be right back.
Okay.
So someone asked, actually it was Pastor Sherman, and I want to get it. Oh no, wait. Pastor Shimon asked, are there any particular investments that, you know, would feel safe right now, since we're on the line of investments? Because obviously, given everything that's going on in the economy, people are concerned about putting their money into other places because of the fluctuation with spending. Like, right. Had we all known that this was coming, we would have all bought stock in Zoom, right? Because they're doing great.
Yeah, right.
We would all bought stock in Zoom. Yeah. Is there anything that you could feel like is a safe bet, regardless of, you know, the financial times, to invest in? And like, what are some good like startups or not startups, but like a good way for people to start investing? Like, who should they put their money in, basically?
I mean, you know, if one of the first advice, and just to answer Shimon's point, goes back to my previous point, is I would have to have a deeper conversation with him to know where his portfolio to know what his portfolio looks like. Because I can throw a lot of things out. You know, if you want some safe harbor investments, then go into bonds. Bonds are backed by the federal government or the state. And so that's one of those places you can just kind of, because what we're saying is we're entrusting the federal government not to collapse. I mean, the last time the federal government collapsed, in my opinion, was when the Great Depression happened. Knock on wood, we haven't had that, even with this whole pandemic going on. But at the same time, you also have a ton of insurance products, because the way the insurance world works, and every time you hear the word insurance, you think about dying. That's not necessarily true. There's so many ways you can incorporate insurance into your portfolio to safeguard a lot of your investments when the markets are down. And then when the markets are doing well, you can just pull your money out and go back into the market. But I would say, looking at, for somebody who wants to just start off into investing, the first question I would ask them is, how much are you putting away every month before you can invest? Because I can just come to you and tell you, okay, you know what, Julia, go ahead and start putting $100 away into buying Tesla, into buying technology stocks, because technology now is the way. You just pointed out Zoom. The way we're living now, the way we're connecting with each other now is all technology driven. So you can only imagine how technology stocks and technology portfolio are really making money right now. But if you're not disciplined in the interim or in the beginning, where you're starting to put money away into your savings account every month, or you're taking that $200 out of your paycheck every month to put it away, how are you going to be disciplined to invest? So that's my challenge. And that's what you have to start with. You have to have a nest egg that you're going to create first before you can start going out and start expanding on that nest egg.
And I'll say one thing for me, when I was in my 20s, one of the things I had to do, I had to get a roommate. And I was a person who had my own apartment, and I couldn't wait to get out of my parents' house and to have my own stuff. And then I got my own stuff, and then I realized, by the time they took the taxes out, and by the time I paid rent, and by the time I gave, I had a cell phone, and all the bills just started adding up, that the only thing that really made sense for me to do was to really find a way to just generate more money, short of getting a second or third job, which some people do. For me, it was getting a roommate, and that way I was able to sort of cut my expenses down, which gave me a little bit more room so that I could pay down my debt first, because I was really in a situation where I had a lot of debt, pay down some of that debt, and then get to a point where I can kind of breathe. So, sometimes we have to make those sacrifices.
And to Renee's point, just so you guys can know, so let me throw this stat out there for you guys. 30% of your annual income goes to your cost of living. What do I mean by that? Your mortgage and your rent. On average, you live in the Northern Virginia area. If you're renting, you're literally paying over $1,000. If you own a mortgage, you're probably paying about $2,000 if you live in one of these townhomes here in Woodbridge. So I say all of that to say what Renee is pointing out is, if 30% of her income is going to her mortgage or her rent, so think about if you're making $60,000 and 30% of that income is going into your mortgage or your rent. That's almost $20,000. So if you can find somebody to subsidize that or split that in half, so now instead of paying $20,000 out of your paycheck on a yearly basis to cover your rent, now you're paying 10. But guess what you do with the extra 10? You invest that. That's what she's pointing out.
That's really good. Thank you, Seti. That's great. So we want to get into a quick question about debt and credit. So what are some good ways to build up your credit? Because I think that, I know for me, when I have, I don't think you really start getting an idea for how credit can impact you until you need to use it. And typically, if you're not, raised up under some super savvy financial parents, like I know Nate Benjamin's kids are going to be great. Like they're going to come out with 750 straight out of college because they have a father who's extremely knowledgeable in that area.
Yep.
But like my parents,
I see him on here.
That wasn't, they were still working on their credit even, and we all are, it's like we're working on it together as a family. So what are some things that can really help you boost without, taking maybe major risk, or how do you encourage people to start that process?
And this goes back to my banking experience coming from the banking world. It's always good to have some form of credit. The credit system in this country is what created the middle class, just so you guys know. That affords you the ability to go to a dealership and buy a car without a dime in your pocket, just so you know. You got a good credit score, you can go into a dealership, 0% financing, 0% down payment, you can purchase a car and be out. My mom always told me that, but it's funny because when I came to the US, I was like, damn, I want this car, I want that car. I love nice cars. And she's like, you know what, baby? You can get any car you want. It's just that when that due date comes, you make sure you send that check, because if you don't, they will come and get the car back. She always told me that. And so I say all of this to say, in order to build your credit, I would start, one of the ways I started was just to get some little small credit card. And I use the word small in a sense of, maybe go to your bank and say, hey, can I just apply for this credit card? Now, if you, for some of you who are fairly young and new to all of this, you might need what's called a co-signer, meaning you don't have enough credit history So the credit companies are not prone to give you a credit card. So again, going back to Julia's point, maybe Nate, and when Nate kids get to that point of age where they're eligible to get their own credit card, Nate will co-sign on some of those credit cards for his kids. But what happens also is when you co-sign with your parent has full discretion to be able to kind of monitor how you're handling your credit. Another trick to kind of build your credit, I don't know if this is still prevalent, but it was during my banking years, and it was not too long ago, less than 10 years ago. If your parent adds you, so if your parent adds you to one of their long-standing credit card, you automatically kind of inherit that credit card history. So it kind of works in a way where, let's just say for me, if I've had one of my credit cards for the last, 20 years, and I've had a good standing history with it for that long. If I went and added one of my daughters to it, she inherits that 20-year history of credit. And what that significantly means is she can go from having, a score of, because when she starts off, maybe it's about 400 or 500 to 600 over a short period. And so just different things that you can do. But I would urge you to kind of do it slowly. Department store credit cards are pretty good for spiking up your credit fast. So like your Macy's and some of those department stores, or like your Nike credit cards, they're pretty good because those are the first ones that will report when you're late, just so you know. They're good to raise your credit, but they're also good to bring it down. Your basic cell phones, things like that, when you get it in your name. Or maybe just your car, your first car, instead of just paying cash with that car because you probably saved like $5,000 and you want this nice car, maybe put $2,500 down and get the rest on credit and have mom or dad co-sign or somebody co-sign for you to help you build your credit.
Nate, did you want to ask your question, or you
have? Yeah. No, I'm sorry about that. I'm balancing actually 2 Zoom meetings right now. So, but I'm listening to you all. You're in my ears. So,
what up, Nate?
Hey, what's going on, brother? Good. So one of the things I just wanted to add, and I think it's important to add the historical reference to the wealth gap in our country. A lot of what has occurred in our country has been like institutionalized by policy, right? Yep. So like we as Black people, particularly, or African Americans, have struggled because there have been so many policies put in place to basically not allow for us to get the real estate, for us not to be in the positions and the places. And so while we're trying to figure out this space, we also got to recognize that there have been institutional challenges that have prevented us from being where our counterparts are, right? So I want to stress that part first. And then 2, I wanted to add on to something that Teddy's saying that I think is really important, but then also giving at least a different perspective. Every person comes to investing with a different lens, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. So there are some people who are looking to be very, and Teddy, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. There are some people who, especially if you're in your 20s, you're looking to retire probably 30, 40 years from now, right? Mm-hmm. So when you come to investing, you're coming to investing from a place where like, I'm trying to get the most yield. I'm trying to get the most bang. I can be, I can be risky, if you will, because I have time in order to recover. And then you have some people who might be in their like 40s or 50s, or you might have people who have like multiple children who don't want to be as risky. So like you have Black folks who are oftentimes first generations, who are graduating, who are now in the workforce, who now make great money, but they don't necessarily know what their strategy is. So my question for the group is, can we have conversations about those folks that have different objectives, if you will? Like we talk about stocks, we talk about bonds, we talk about savings, we talk about all these different things, but there are different ways for different folks. So like, what would be resources for somebody who doesn't know how they should actually try to structure how they move forward in their investment strategy, if that makes sense?
And Nate, I'm happy you pointed that out. Just to touch on your stuff, your point about institutionalized systems that have really affected our community in a way where we haven't been successful in some of our endeavors. But I put it this way, and what Nate is alluding to, I'm sure you people are well aware of it, is, you know, just a lot of the gerrymandering with the political aspects of it. And you know, I heard something on TV the other day, because I always listen to all these policies makers and stuff, but this guy pointed it out very well. He says, you know, we gerrymander a lot of this country, and we segmented this country in a way where we take a lot of the wealthy neighborhoods, we bring in a lot of the industrialized, you know, nice neighborhoods and everything else, and then we kick out the poor folks. But then we kind of redline them into a specific area, and then we don't give them good restaurants, we don't give them good schools, we don't give them good nothing. So they're prone to their environment. They're eating, I mean, let me just make it blunt, they're eating bad food, they're obese, you know, they have high blood pressure, and then all of a sudden you have a pandemic that hits, and then it's hitting our community, and then we're telling them, well, hell, why the hell you're not treating yourself right? Why the hell you're not working out? You haven't given them an option. You haven't given them something good. And so I point that out to be cognizant of what's going on in our community, as to what we've been subjected to for so many years, or so many, what was like 400 years. But here's where I will caution all of you here. This is 2020. Information now is priceless, just as Nick said. I can guarantee you, if I was out there right now and I was at one of Courtney's games, and you know, I love sneakers, and I saw one of his students there balling in a nice little Nike pair of sneaker, I probably know how to go find that sneaker. I can go type it in. I can just have a conversation with the kid. Right, Courtney? I can call the kid up and just be like, hey, man, you know what you got? He said, I got the new Kobe's. What's it called? It's the Kobe's 11. I'll go on Google and type it. You can do the exact same thing when it comes to finances. Just ask. That's all I'm saying. Because it's going to take a long time for us to kind of resonate, for this kind of message to resonate with every single person. But we have to reach out. And let me tell you the thing about successful people. And success doesn't necessarily have to mean money. See somebody like Nate or Courtney or whomever, people love to affiliate themselves with people that look like they're doing something good. And so that starts to rub off. It starts to rub off with your friends. I guarantee you, if you're a person who's structured in your family, you take care of your home, you take care of your wife, you take care of your kids, you're doing very well for yourself, it starts to transcend with your boys. I saw it in my group. Next thing you know, my boys like, man, I got to stop playing around. I got to clean up my act. Maybe I don't need to drive this $1,500 Benz I'm driving no more. You know, maybe I need to turn this stuff in and kind of really get myself together and check myself. Or maybe I need to purchase a home. Maybe I don't need to be driving a flashy car and then I'm renting, or I'm living in somebody's basement. It's just different things that starts to trigger down. So, you know, to Nate's point, I don't know if that helps a little bit, Nate, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that because you made a really good point on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And you know, it's interesting because I definitely want to at least highlight the fact that, you know, a lot of our, especially YAMs, because I want to speak to the YAMs in particular, a lot of the YAMs are in positions and they're trying to figure it out. And I don't want to speak for YAMs, but I think I can. Like, they're trying to figure it out, but like they didn't get into this place by accident. And so like I want to focus on the fact that there were a lot of designs and policies that were in place that have completely disenfranchised them. But even though they're disenfranchised, there's an opportunity for them to be able to recover from it. So like, I don't want it to ever sound like, you know, oh, well, you know, they're just the young folks and they're trying to figure it out, or they don't like, no, like there have been so many institutionalized things that have prevented them from being able to flourish in the space that they are in. And so I don't want, I just, as an older person, I want to be able to provide that there are options, there are ways to get out of this. And I think that, Teddy, you're doing a really good job of explaining these different things. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least share that, you know what? You didn't do something wrong. You went to college, you followed the script, you did the right thing. But unlike your white counterparts, where people were cashing in different stocks in order for their grandkids to go to college and come out of school and not have this debt, we did not have the same opportunities. Right. So recognizing that this is where we are, now how do we move forward instead of potentially our young folks beating themselves up thinking they didn't make the right decision? So I just think it's really important to be able to speak to that. And when you even think about, like, in this country, when you look at like the federal housing practices and you look at African Americans who were not able to even get federally backed loans because, you know, the country and the policies didn't allow for that. And so then now we're in a space where, you know, we're first or maybe second generation folks that are getting loans and able to get homes, and we're passing down wealth. But we're not in this position because we did something wrong. We were in a position because we're in this position because we're in a country that didn't even allow for us to be able to pass down real estate as wealth. And we know that real estate is one of the greatest ways for us to have generational wealth. Yep. So like, I just have to impose that part real quick, because like, I think that as we're empowering our young folks to be able to do the things and move and make moves, recognizing that you're not here by accident. And so now that we have the foundation and we know that like it's time to invest, it's time to do these things, like there are different strategies that we can put in place that are just important for our young folks to understand, such as, i.e., putting matching in place so that, you know, at the end of the day, you're not leaving money on the table if your job is giving you a 5% or 6% match. You know, if there's investing in, like, you know, something that I saw real quick, and I don't mean to talk too long and I'm going to jump off, but like, for instance, there was something that I noticed in social media when the market hit and when the market tanked. And Renee, you talked about this a little bit. I noticed a lot of people who were not necessarily technically savvy in the market get super concerned when the market dipped. And it was like, oh my gosh, like the market is tanking. I gotta like sell X, Y, and Z. And the people who sold, and Teddy, if you can talk about this a little bit, the people who sold are the people who lost their money. You only lose money when you sell. You don't lose money when you're riding the wave. And so, as you know, 2.5 months later, we're in a recovery state. And if you left your money alone, we're good. But if you sold it, you lost. So like, I don't know, just like explain if you can like maybe talk to that a little bit as well.
Yeah. I'm happy you said that. I want to point out something you said earlier, so I can explain that point, guys. The country is listening to us. They are. There is a wave, and this wave has been coming. I used to tell my wife this. I used to tell my family this. This wave's been coming. There's a lot of educated Black folks, y'all. There's a lot of middle-income Black folks who are doing very well. By the way, we live right next to PG County. PG County is the richest Black neighborhood in the entire country. Just so y'all know, I can give you some raw numbers out of there. But there's a reason why they're listening to us, people, especially for the YAMs on here. 50% of the workforce in this country by 2021, next year, are millennials. By 2025, 75% of the workforce in this country are millennials. You think they want to listen to y'all? Yeah. So going back to that piece I gave y'all on that purchasing power from our community, you can only imagine that number could probably double. It's a $1 trillion community right now. You guys, we spend money. We spend a lot of money. Think about how much you spend on a day-to-day basis. So going back to Nate's point about the market, this goes back to just educating yourself and speaking to some advisor, or just learning using, some of the tools that I've shared with you guys as far as Yahoo Finance, or like Renee pointed out, CNBC. When the market is doing bad, do not sell your portfolio. But that's what a lot of people do. Because you know what? They panic. You cannot imagine. In 2008, I used to be with the bank. I got a plethora of calls. People were calling, panicking on that fateful September morning. I was with Wachovia Bank. If you guys remember Wachovia got bought out by Wells Fargo. I was one of those people that got let go months later after we got taken over. But I point this out. All of the calls that we got back then, and even up in March, were people who were frantic. Oh my God, I pulled up my 401k and I had a $100,000 balance and now I'm down to like 70,000. Oh my God, no. Take me out of there right now. Do you realize when Obama became president, for those people who kept the money when Obama's, and I'm not harking this back to him, I'm not trying to be political here. I'm just pointing out the years that he was he was the president. If you kept your money from 2008, 2009 in the market and never took your money out, you made about 48% in return. Do the math. What most people did back then, or what a good number of people did back then, they panicked and they took their money out. So again, it all depends on where you are, what stage you're in. You guys who are younger, including myself, you have a longer time frame to recover. So the market does what's called a cyclical thing. So every 7 years, we see what's called a recession in the market, or correction, meaning there's a dip. Stocks will, and all that means is the market is all perception. Companies are probably going through like a wave of profits, and the profits are not good, and people are perceiving it like, oh my God, We need to do a little bit of dip here, so people start selling off their stock. So you might see a little dip every 7 or 8 years or so. Well, in the last 10 years, we haven't seen nothing until the pandemic happens, because we're on this wave. We're just riding up. Everyone who portfolio stayed there, and they can speak to this too. He probably can attest to it, should I say. Your money kept going up. So again, if the market is doing bad, if you're in the market and the market is doing bad, don't sell. If you're not in the market and the market is doing bad, buy. That's when you need to buy, because it's cheap. Go ahead, Julia.
I was going to say, Teddy, can you speak to where do you get started? I mean, having a plan. I mean, do you write something out? I mean, how do you kick it off, get started?
I think, if the market is somewhere you want to go, and I'm hearing a lot of these questions now market based, because people want to take advantage of it, as rightly they should. I would say, start researching stuff online. Go to CNBC. You can pull up their website. And one of the things you can do is just to say investing 101. You can type that in Google or something like investing for 101, like with mutual funds. Don't do stocks yet. Do mutual funds. That would be my advice, because stocks can be a little risky.
I'm sorry. Do you recommend having, just a financial plan in general, even if you're not doing stocks? Is it important to sort of have a plan? Can you speak to that?
Okay. So having a financial plan is very essential. Nate talked about building wealth and talking about how home ownership contributes to a lot of the wealth in this country, which is true. Do you know what else contributes to a lot of the wealth? Do you know what else a lot of people use that passes on wealth? Life insurance. Because what happens is, some of these people, like you would hear when I was in college, you would always hear like, oh my God, Renee, man, her family got it. She got the silver spoon. Her daddy left her a lot of money. No, her daddy had life insurance. So when her daddy died, or when her daddy passes, or when Teddy daddy passes, he left him something. And so that's part of the whole generational wealth, creating something. Our community has a bad rap in our industry. And sometimes it's sad to hear, but it's the truth. When somebody passes in our community, the first thing that happens? A GoFundMe goes up. Every time you see a GoFundMe that goes up, that's a lack of planning in our community for several reasons. And I'm not going to get into the reasons being. And so I'll urge everybody to sit down with some financial advisor. You can sit down with me. I have time. I have a team that I can designate some of my agents out, and I'll be on each of your meetings to kind of oversee it and just kind of understand your situation. Where are you financially right now? Do you how much money you're making? What's your debt level like? Are you putting money away right now? If you're not, how can we help you to create that sort of a discipline to start putting money away? Or maybe you have all of that in place right now. Okay, well, the money that you're putting away, are you getting a significant return or a good return on it? And then we can start to kind of steer you into the market and kind of gradually get you into the market and try to take some of the necessary risk that's involved.
Great. So I think that the main point we got from this is everything depends. It depends on where you are today and where you would like to be. And everyone would like to be in a comfortable place and have something to pass down. I think people have put some very good information out there. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Teddy. Some people in the chat have also let us know our Pastor Battle has spoken on the 10-10-80 rule a few times in his sermons called Money Sense, where you pay 10% to God first. You pay yourself 10%, and then the 80% is what you have left to pay your bills. And if your bills exceed the 80%, then you need to reevaluate what you're spending your money on.
Hey, Crystal, I wanted to point this out. I'm not sure, because I'm sure we probably don't even have time. I wanted to point this out because I like to use realistic situations. Everybody saw what happened and heard what happened to Kobe Bryant. I don't know about y'all. It's hard for me to accept it. This is somebody who I hated, I rooted against. But just so y'all know, Kobe and I are the same age. We almost, he has all daughters. I have all girls in my house. In fact, I'm the only guy in my house. I have a wife, 2 daughters, and a mother-in-law. Pray for me. You see my hairline is all gone. So I'm saying all of this to say for a reason. Kobe Bryant woke up one morning, kissed his wife, went on his daddy duties, and he never came back home. That's how life is. Now, there's 1% of Kobe in this country or in this world that can afford where his family are still left in a great condition, because I think his wife now, they're projecting that she's going to be worth over close to $1 billion because she's inherited all his investments and everything else that he was, able to achieve, which is great. But think about everybody here who are not Kobe Bryant, and if that happens, including myself, what do you leave? And that's how you have to start thinking about it. That's what's happening in our community. Those are some of the real issues that's happening in our community. And you find that if the head of household checks out, something happens tragically, the kids are hosed. They can't go to college. If that income was the one keeping the roof over their head, the mortgage company is going to tell you, yeah, sorry to hear about your loss, but we need that check. If you don't have that check, you got to leave. The rental company is going to tell you the same thing. So that's why we have to start paying attention now, especially for those who don't even have families now, when you're in the better position to start putting things in place now before you even get to that point. Go ahead, Crystal.
And I know, how do we do that? How do we prepare for, if something was to happen? I mean, unfortunately, we see it every day. We don't know the day nor the hour. You don't know someone's motives. And, we need to make sure that we're prepared for our families, even if we don't have kids, we don't want to leave a burden to our parents or to our aunts or our grandparents.
Yeah. I'll probably harken it back to what Nate said. Just act now. Just do something now. Sit with somebody, reach out to me. I'm here on this call. There's probably at least 25 or so of you on here. I have time. I can schedule time to talk to each of you. A couple of minutes. Pick my brain. Tell me where you are. Tell me what's on your mind, things that are concerning to you, or things that some of your takeaways from this call. I'll help you and I'll point you in the right direction. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I have a wealth of information. My Rolodex is huge. I can point you to someone who can help you, whether it means you need to repair your credit. I have someone who can help you. Whether it means you're in the market to purchase a home, I have someone who can help you. Whether it means you need to do some investments, I have people who can help you, including myself. So just kind of utilize the resources around you, including Crystal and Cedric. They've been my client. They're actually my clients, to be honest with you. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to manage them.
Julia, we have a couple minutes left. Do you?
So I'm looking at some of the questions and trying to see what we covered a lot actually in just the open conversation, which is wonderful. Someone did submit a question about like finances between couples. So, and I think that's, so one thing that I learned that totally shifted, and I'm not married, but I now learned that like they penalize people who do not file their taxes as a married couple if they're married. Before there were, loopholes in the past, I guess. This is like, I'm assuming new. But what's the best way to tackle debt and handle finances as a couple, especially now, since it seems that a lot of lending agencies and financial institutions are kind of really harboring down on people who are legally married and that combining of their finances? What does that look like, successfully, and how can you help younger couples who may be just who one could be coming in with a lot of debt, kind of lopsided. One partner may not have a lot of debt. The other partner may have like maybe multiple degrees and has accumulated a lot of debt. How do you navigate those things so that, finances don't become an issue in your relationship?
Great question. They always like to say in our industry, the number one reason for divorce in this country is finance, just so you all know. And I think it stems from a lot of transparency, honesty, and trust. I'll put my hands up first. My wife and I, when we met and we were in the dating game, we never talked about finance because, we dated, after work, we caught up, went to dinner, did our thing, hung out, weekends, whatnot. When you start having kids, when we had our first kid, we still really never talked about finances. It was always like, all right, you do you, I do me. We combine, if the kids need this, we put money together for it. We pay a huge price for that. Not being transparent. And I was one of those people being very reclusive, even though I come with all this history of financial background, but I was still the young Teddy. I was still like, shoot, I'm good. How much the kid needs? 1,000? I'll give you 1,000. But the truth of the matter is I wasn't even disciplining my own self in taking care of my own responsibilities. So at some point in time, all of that came to fruition. And so I'll urge all the young couples not to put themselves in that predicament. Just have an honest conversation. If you're choosing someone to be your partner where you're going down an aisle or you're walking down an aisle to say, I do, something tells me you really, really mean what you're doing. And so if you're not going to be honest with them in just to tell them exactly what your financial situation looks like, then maybe you shouldn't be getting married in the first place because it's going to come up. And when it comes up, somebody's going to look at you and they're going to get really upset, and there's going to be a lot of pain in that marriage. So my challenge to all of the young couples on here is to kind of have an honest conversation in the beginning. It's a hard thing to do. Don't get me wrong. It's not like you can just sit there and be like, hey man, let's just talk about me. Do you know I got like $10,000 in credit card debt? Not like that. Find a happy place. Find a common ground that you guys, and even if you want to talk to someone you guys look up to, like an adult, to be in the room, let that be the case, because finance can get really testy among couples. Again, I was one of those people until we got it on track, when we started being more transparent about our finances. As far as the taxes part, Julia, there are several ways when you're a couple, when you're filing taxes. And by the way, I'm not a tax consultant. I'm not allowed to say anything tax related, but you can file as a couple, and you're also given the option to file separately, even married. So there are options there for you. Yeah, you just have to choose one. You cannot not choose anything, and so you'll get penalized if that's the case.
Okay.
Well, we are at actually 12:01. We're 1 minute over. I think this was an amazing session. We have like tons more questions that we couldn't even get to. Our pastor is on Facebook. He actually suggested we do a part 2. So if everyone's up to it and Teddy's available, we would love to set that up, because it was just great. And like I said in the chat, Nate, Renee, we appreciate you all. You aren't official members of the YAMs, but we appreciate.
I want them back. They better come back. Renee, you better come back. I'll track you down.
Yeah, it was important for to hear from you and for you to share what you've learned, and just to give us things that we need to think about moving forward. What are we feeding ourselves in our leisurely time? That was important, Renee. So I really appreciate that. Teddy, would you mind sharing your email address for anyone who is interested in contacting you? You can put it in the chat.
I can put it in the chat, right?
Yeah.
Look at me. See, that's how old I am. I don't even know how to do this stuff. So I'll put my email in here.
And for those on Facebook, we'll make sure we'll put his contact information on the Facebook. If you're interested in reaching out to have a one-on-one session. Julie, you have anything else?
And you can LinkedIn me too.
No, I think Pastor Jason hit it on the head. There's so much more. I mean, finances is such a wide topic, and I think that there's definitely room for a part 2, because there were areas that we haven't even touched on that I think would be great. So this was a wonderful dialogue, and we thank everybody for coming out, and we look forward to giving you more content that is relevant and that you guys enjoy.
Oh, also I want to make mention, there was a lot of people who are not part of the Woodbridge crew or are not a part of Young Adult Ministry. If you're interested in getting to know us, hanging out with us more, please let us know. You can find us on Facebook, or just put us in the chat here, and we'll make sure we connect with you so that you are engaged in anything else we have going on. We try to continue each and every month to do something to feed us. All right.
Thank you. Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone enjoy the rest of their Saturday.